What we also try to do is define creative and manageable ways of making sure that those things are informed by people with lived experience. One of the key ways that we do it is something called the Design Insight Group. The Design Insight Group is a database of, I'm not sure how many people are in there now, maybe 3,000. I can't remember the exact number, but let's say 3,000 people. And they sort of serve as like a focus group that we will pay them. We pay them $30 an hour to consult on questions, and that comes up in different ways. So, for example, one of our initiatives at Robinhood is called Blue Ridge Labs, and this is a group that makes use of the Design Insight Group most substantially. They actually run the Design Insight Group. What essentially they are is an incubator for nonprofit, for not necessarily nonprofit, it could be nonprofit for profit, but an incubator for tech entrepreneurs who are trying to develop products, programs, organizations for the common good. So we fund organizations that work in everything from educational technology, lots of financial inclusion work, so helping people apply for public benefits or understand the nature of their medical debt. So we fund a lot of things like that. And one of the things that we do as a Design Insight Group is that when the entrepreneur comes to us, the Insight Group gives feedback on the problem, feedback on the proposed solution, and feedback on the product. So just to give an example, one thing, we had an entrepreneur who wound up being very successful, but his initial idea was he wanted to help poor people budget as a way of improving financial inclusion. So he was going to create a budgeting tool that would be easily accessible. And in talking to the Design Insight Group, their feedback was the last thing we need is budgeting help. Like no one knows how to budget. No one is more a budgeting ninja than someone living in Manhattan on $20,000 a year. Like I know how to budget and stretch. That's not what I need. I need help figuring out how to access public benefits, which can be a confusing process, to increase the resources I have to make decisions. And I need help maximizing how I access those benefits, including through things like WIC, the Women and Infants and Children Nutrition Program, which has notoriously difficult rules on what you can buy and what you can't buy. And so the goal was the same, like his goal was right. They're like, that's the real problem. We don't have enough money to meet my family's needs, but you're on the right place, but we need a different kind of solution. And then when you develop the product, you have a user group who's saying, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. And there are lots of sort of examples like that. Another one sort of counterintuitively, there was a group that was building a resource guide for resources in the neighborhood. And their intent was to do it online. This was during the pandemic. And the Design Insight Group was like, no, we don't want that online. And it wasn't that people didn't have access to phones necessarily. People in the group said that the way that we use these resource guides, and the reason why the group didn't want to do on paper, because things change so quickly. They're so dynamic. Right. I mean, it was like, if I print it on paper, it'll be obsolete in 2 weeks. And what the community said, no, you don't understand how we use it. That guide, to be helpful, should have pages and note pages as well. And what we do is we share information. I'll update it. I'll write it by hand. It's more useful to me to have a written document that I can annotate, share, than to have a tech tool, which is bulky to do that with my thumbs on. And so again, a very sort of analog solution to what I would have thought would be a digital solution. So there are things like that we do. So it's less about qualitative surveys of program recipients, which for a bunch of reasons is not necessarily something that we want to burden our providers with doing, but trying to find ways, sometimes indirectly, of making sure that people like me who don't live in poverty and don't necessarily understand what day-to-day life and challenges are, making sure that those voices are represented as much as we can in our grant-making decisions.